Okay, guys, since this is an assignment on compassion, I'm going to ask you to be a little compassionate for me in my post workout, really sweaty, gross after work version of Jess. But when Susan asks you a favor, it's really hard to tell her no. And so this is going to be a training tool for teaching heels. In Compassion Workshop, we teach it every 12 weeks and we teach it a junk ton throughout the program. And so we really get used to the concept of teaching it. But it's a really complex process that I think the curriculum can sometimes make a little bit more confusing than it actually is. So I'm going to give you the most basic, broken down, simple explanation I can give for what H.E.A.L.S is and how you use it. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to follow up with me or Susan Kester or anyone else in the parenting program, Marshall, who might have a little more knowledge on how to do the process. But I hope that this helps to make it a little less confusing for you guys, because when it's confusing for us, it's really confusing for the clients. And I do think that it took me a hot minute to feel really comfortable teaching compassion. And so I hope that this can be helpful. So H.E.A.L.S essentially it's an anger management tool that's based on using our core values. Essentially, this means that by using this, it prevents us from being reactive. We do know that there's a difference between domestic violence and anger management. And us teaching this is not to say that we think our clients just need anger management and they'll be fine. It's essentially just another tool that they can have in their toolbox for handling conflict. So it is an important distinction for us to make. But I do think that this tool can be really helpful for a lot of our clients. And so I love that we've added it to the curriculum. H.E.A.L.S is an acronym, and I'm going to go through what each of the letters in the acronym stand for and kind of explain it. And then after that, I'll give a scenario or two to show how it actually is used in real life. And hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And when I teach it, this is how I teach it as well. I go through what all the letters mean and kind of explain it. And I let them know that it's okay if it's really confusing now. And then once we break it down into scenarios, it actually makes sense for real life application. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can kind of break down all the things with you. And so you're not just having to look at my face. So the first step is H.E.A.L.S times 3. And essentially that just means that you're using this to trigger your clients to say H.E.A.L.S, H.E.A.L.S, H.E.A.L.S. If H.E.A.L.S, H.E.A.L.S, H.E.A.L.S works for you and for your clients to remind them to use this process, then that's great. But I want them to use whatever word triggers them to not respond. And essentially, this is one of the most important pieces of the process, which is that we tend to get ourselves into trouble. We tend to say the wrong thing or do something wrong or hurt somebody if we pop off with the first thing that comes to our mind. If someone hurts us, if someone is being combative or aggressive, we react and say the first thing that comes to our mind, and that is usually the wrong thing. So this trigger word gives you a reminder to pause or breathe or filter or process before you respond. So H.E.A.L.S, H.E.A.L.S, H.E.A.L.S can work. Pause, breathe, filter, process, whatever the word triggers them. I always joke, and I apologize if you've shadowed me before because I tell the same stories and same jokes all the time. But me and my husband always say wasabi is our trigger word to pause. Because if you've ever gone and eaten sushi and you have too much wasabi, your like whole life freezes and pauses and your nose burns and you can't say anything and you're trying not to cry and embarrass yourself until the moment passes. And so that's our trigger word. We're like, okay, wasabi, you just need to pause for a minute and not respond. So the H technically stands for H.E.A.L.S, 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 but I want you to encourage your clients, because I know a lot of my clients say that like pause is the best word for them or breathe is the best word for them, reminding themselves to take a deep breath. So I want them to use the word that triggers them the best. So whatever that is what the H stands for. The E stands for experience. And this is for us to experience our deepest core hurt. And our core hurts are these things listed down here. And essentially, when something unpleasant happens, when we're faced with conflict, when we're upset, we tend to think that pissed me off, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm bitter, I'm resentful. And those things might be true. But the real reason that we're upset is because our core hurt has been affected. And those feelings, the anger, the pissed off, the resentful, are symptoms of those core hurts. And so when something happens that makes you angry, you're like, okay, that really pissed me off. But why did it piss me off? Well, because I feel really powerless right now. Okay, why did that piss me off? Because that made me feel really rejected. And so we want to encourage our clients to not just think of the symptom they're feeling, but to actually identify why it upset them so much, because then they're going to handle it more appropriately if they know the real reason they were upset about it, versus just thinking like, man, that pissed me off, right? So that's what right, that's my word. I need to quit saying that. But that's what the E is for, is experience our deepest core hurt. The A stands for access our core value. Our core value is our deepest why. It's our positive motivator. It's our feeling of self-worth and value as a person. Everyone's core values are different. You're going to be motivated by different things. But a lot of times our clients will make the right decision, but they only make the right decision because of fear of consequence. Meaning, I'm not going to hit this person because I don't want to go back to jail. I'm not going to say this because I don't want to get a divorce. I'm not going to do this because I don't want my kid to get taken away. And if that's the only reason you're doing the right thing, then that's still a step in the right direction. But you are still living in a really negative mindset, and you're driven by fear. And that doesn't last forever. And a fear of consequence is a really unhealthy mindset to be in all the time. Whereas if you can make a decision because you know you're a valuable person and you're striving for something better, and your decision to do the right thing is driven by a positive motivator. One of my core values is being a really kind person. And if I responded that way, I would not be the kind person that I claim to be. My core value is being a role model for my children. And if they saw me right now, they would not be proud of the way they handle situations. So I'm going to change my response because I would want to make my children proud. Those are more positive reasons to make the right decision. And so the core value is us tuning into whatever that deepest, most valuable version of ourselves is, as a reminder why we need to respond in the best way possible. Okay. The L stands for love yourself by experiencing compassion. Thank you. So essentially this piece is, one, I'm going to have compassion for myself. I recognize that I'm allowed to feel upset by the way this person talked to me. It's okay that my feelings are hurt. It's okay I'm upset. But the hardest part of this step is that we don't just have compassion for ourselves. We have to have compassion for the other person. Clients tend to really throw a fit about this one. Why should I have compassion for them when they're treating me like this? They started it. They don't have compassion for me. They don't care. And those things may or may not be true. But the way we need to teach compassion is just like forgiveness. Compassion is for the self. We are having compassion for someone else for our own benefit. I do like to, when I explain what compassion is, that I want compassion to be the concept that everyone has a story. And even though we don't know their story, we want to treat them as though they have a story. But when it comes to this, and I'll give a scenario at the end that I think will make it make a little bit more sense. But if we, again, we're motivated by something negative, and I'm still feeling ill will towards this person, even if I handle the situation the right way, if there's no compassion, it's going to lead me to being resentful. It's going to lead to bitterness. It's going to lead me to hold on to and bottle up negative emotions. So even though I may not have responded negatively, internally, I'm still feeling all the anger and bitterness. So even if I disagree with a person, if I can find some sort of compassion for them, it means that when the situation is over, I'm not still holding on to anger and resentment towards that person. And then the S stands for solve. And when we talk about this, solving the problem, I want us to be using the words to solve the problem in our long-term best interest. And I say this because I think that sometimes when we're solving the problem, we are solving the problem for what feels like our best interest right now, instead of what is actually going to be our best interest in the long term. And so when I teach this, I usually start with a fun, lighthearted scenario and then go to a little bit more serious scenario. So a scenario I give all the time is, my girlfriend invited me for a girls' night out. I was really excited. I have 2 kids. She has no kids. So this is a big deal for me. I bought a new outfit. My husband was going to watch the kids. I got all dressed up. I put on mascara. And at the last minute, she bails. Okay, I give them the opportunity. Tell me what might be going through my mind right now when my friend just canceled on me last minute with no notice. But I'm going to go through H.E.A.L.S. And so knowing H.E.A.L.S, I'm going to pause. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to tell her she's flaky, she's so selfish. I'm not going to say the things that come to my mind. I'm going to give myself a minute to pause and process. I'm going to look at that list of my core hurts and to try and figure out which one I might be feeling. Okay, well, if my friend canceled on me last minute, I feel a little bit devalued, like she doesn't value my time, or she doesn't value how much effort it was for me to be able to go out tonight. So now I know I feel devalued. Now, what core value am I going to tune into? Like, okay, well, she's my best friend. That friendship is very important to me. Our relationship is very important. So even if I'm upset right now, and even if this turns into a conflict, I'm going to be motivated to handle this the best way possible, because Our friendship is important to me, and I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. Right. So this one's fairly easy when it comes to compassion. And again, I like to ask them instead of telling them, but having compassion for her could be maybe she had a really bad day today. Maybe there's something going on that she doesn't want to tell me about, or maybe it's put myself in her shoes. Has there ever been a time when I canceled last minute? Heck yeah, right? It happens all the time. I bail last minute all the time. So even though I love it, I've been there before and I can kind of understand where she's coming from. And then to solve the problem in my long-term best interest, this is usually one of two ways. If this is the first time she's ever bailed on me, my feelings are a little bit hurt, but truthfully, it's not a pattern. I really don't think I need to start a conflict over it. So I'm going to tell her I hope her evening is okay. I'm going to reschedule and I'm going to let it go. This is more of an internal issue. My feelings were a little hurt, but it's not a big deal and it doesn't need to be had. A conflict doesn't need to happen here. Or if this is a pattern and she bails on me all the time, then maybe solving it in my long-term best interest is, hey, I know that if I don't say anything, it's going to lead to resentment on my part. So even though I'm sure something came up, I'm going to tell her, hey, I'm sorry that you had to bail last minute. I'm sorry that you had a bad day, but I just want to let you know that it did kind of bother me that you canceled on me last minute, and I feel like it happens often, and open up this discussion to that. But it's important that when we get to the solve the problem part, that we recognize, one, we want to handle it in a way that will not screw us over in the long run, but two, that not every conflict has to be an interaction between two people. Some conflicts internal, and solving it in everyone's best interest means me dealing with it on my own. Sometimes conflict or the solving it in everyone's best interest means I'm going to have to say something so it doesn't lead to a bigger problem down the way. Right. So there's a lighthearted, easy one for clients to kind of start to understand the process. And I let them know that you should go through heals in your head. It As we go through it, it sounds like this long, complex process, but once it becomes second nature and you practice it all the time in traffic, when you're running late, when you step on your kid's Lego in the middle of the night and you feel like you want to die, you practice it in those little moments. Then in the big moments, when your energy is going and anger is going through you and your chemicals are pumping through your brain, it's second nature and it's very easy to do. And it goes really quickly. Once it's second nature, it's like, I'm ticked, but I'm going to pause. I feel a little bit devalued, but she's my best friend and I'm sure something came up, so I'm just going to let it go. And all of that came through your head before you ever responded. A scenario that's a little harder to get into and kind of makes clients be a little more thought provoking is, let's say there's a client and their child's in foster care and they get a visit once a month, and the caseworker calls, an emergency came up and they canceled the visit and they wanted to reschedule, but as the parent, I don't have a different time that I'm able to visit that kid. And with you rescheduling right now, then you just took away my one visit this month with my kid. How do we go through the heals process? Okay, well, we're going to pause. We're not going to say the first thing that comes to our mind. We're going to give ourselves a minute to process. If I'm looking at this list of core hurts, what might I be feeling right now? Why am I so ticked off right now? Well, I feel really powerless, right? Because this is my child and someone else has more say over when I see my child than I do. And there's nothing I can do about it. So I feel really powerless right now. And that's why I'm so upset. Okay, well, I'm going to tune into my core value. Well, my core value is having my baby home with me. My kid comes before anything else. And so even though I'm pissed, even though what I feel like I want to do right now is cuss my worker out or tell them that they are sabotaging me, I'm going to be motivated to handle the situation the right way, because whatever happens at the end of this, I want to get my baby home with me and I don't want to do anything that sabotages that. Right. How do you have compassion for the worker? And again, this is going to be a time where they're going to be like, the worker doesn't care about me. I'm just a number, whatever it is. And teaching them that it's not having compassion for the worker that you are like understanding of why the worker did it. It's that you recognize that you staying mad at this worker only serves to hurt you. So how can you have compassion so that you're not continuing to get more and more angry? Well, my worker has like 25 kids on their caseload and emergencies do happen all the time. And if it was an emergency with my kid, I would want them to bail on whatever else is to take care of my kid. And that is someone else's kid that emergency was. Whatever it is that they have to come up with to be able to have compassion for the caseworker. And then to solve the problem in my long-term best interest is, right now, it would feel really good to get into a conflict with my worker and tell them all the reasons that they're the worst. But that behavior is only going to hurt my case and my chance of getting my child back. So to solve the problem in the long-term best interest, I'm going to do everything I can to see if I can rearrange my schedule to see my kid at the time that they have available. And if I can't, I'm going to let it go and just try and see if maybe I can get a longer visit next month. But being disrespectful or cussing out my worker, those things are all going to sabotage me in the long term. And I don't want to react that way and do anything that's going to jeopardize me getting my child home. Right? This is the heals process. I hope that this makes a little sense and helps break it down a little bit as to how it goes and how you can teach it using your own client scenarios. I love to use something that my clients shared during check-ins, and we use their own story as a way to go through heals. And sometimes it's easier to do heals with someone else's story than our own because ours feels really personal. But it is good to teach the clients that if they can do this and they can process and they can see, I'm not going to respond right away. I'm going to give myself time to process. I'm going to figure out why I'm actually so upset about this. I'm going to remind myself that I'm a valuable, worthy person, and there's good things about me that I need to live into. That I need to handle things in the right way, just because I can, because I'm capable of it, because I'm a good person. I don't want to work against the person I say that I am. We can explain to them how to have compassion and let them realize that compassion serves us, that when I have compassion for other people, it leads to less bitterness, less anger, less resentment on my part. And then that our long term best interest has to be what we have in mind instead of what feels good right in the moment. Feel free to reach out with any questions. I hope that this was helpful. And that's pretty much it. That's the heals process. Thanks, guys.